As it continues to seek smarter and stronger ways to deal with the Russian drone threat, Ukraine just deployed something new. Something even the Pentagon hasn't yet produced, and something that Russia is powerless to stop. An aerial interceptor drone launch platform. A utility aircraft that's undergone some serious modifications to fire not missiles or bombs, but drones in the air, which then seek and destroy any enemy unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, in their sights. It's a remarkable innovation, and one with the potential to give Ukraine even more momentum as it moves forward in this war. And it all started with a simple plane, made several decades ago. The Antonov An-28. Not a fancy fighter jet or sophisticated attack aircraft, just a twin-engine, light turboprop transport aircraft that first took flight in 1969 and has spent much of its existence being used as either a short-range airliner or a utility aircraft for transporting people, freight, or other items from one point to another. While close to 200 of these planes were built, little more than a dozen still remain operational. Some are still used for airline service in Russia, Armenia, and Tajikistan. A small number also reportedly remain in military service in Georgia, Tanzania, and Ukraine. Most militaries around the world wouldn't see much value at all in a plane like this. It's relatively old and small, not especially fast, and it wasn't designed with combat in mind. Ukraine, however, is not like most militaries. It's not wasteful. It doesn't simply retire older assets just because of their age or perceived lack of value. Instead, it looks for value where other people wouldn't. It thinks outside the box, always searching for ways to make the most of the vehicles and equipment at its disposal. It sets the global benchmark as perhaps the most resourceful military force of modern times, turning seemingly valueless assets into world-beating innovations. It does this not necessarily because it wants to, but because it has to. Because Ukraine is facing off against a far larger opponent with far greater resources. Russia has more tanks, more armored vehicles, more missiles, more bombs, more drones, and more men than Ukraine can muster. And when you're dealing with an opponent of that caliber, you can't afford to let anything go to waste. You have to be resourceful if you want to survive. So, when most countries look at the Antonov An-28, they see a boring old utility plane. When Ukraine looks at the Antonov An-28, it sees a goldmine of untapped potential. Its engineers realize that with a little work and some key adjustments here and there, it could become an important weapon in the fight against Russia's drone swarms. So in February 2026, we got our first look at what a souped-up An-28 could do. Footage emerged from the French television channel TF1, which showed one of these aircraft on an active nighttime combat sortie. While the original An-28 design didn't include any weapons or armaments, this An-28 had been equipped with its very own 6-barrel Gatling-type 7.62mm M134 minigun, which had been mounted to the cabin door. This minigun, which is capable of firing between 3,000 and 6,000 rounds a minute, or anywhere from 50 to 100 a second, has a proven track record of success in aerial applications. It came as standard in the AC-47 Spooky, for example, as well as various side-firing gunships, but was historically used to strike targets on the ground. In the An-28, however, Ukraine had a different type of target in mind: Russian drones. And it turns out that it's surprisingly effective. The footage that aired on French TV showed that under the An-28's cockpit were 115 painted silhouettes of Shahed or German-style long-range one-way attack drones, each one representing a confirmed kill. Two of the silhouettes were painted yellow, which may signify a greater number of takedowns, and the news report revealed that the An-28 and its 4-person crew had eliminated almost 150 drones total at the time of filming. The report also went into detail on how the aircraft actually operates. It explained that the A-28 crew is almost always in contact with ground teams of air traffic controllers who guide the aircraft towards areas where Russian drones have been spotted. Each member of the crew has their own part to play in finding and eliminating those drones. There's the camera operator, for example, who sits in front of an infrared display, watching a direct feed from a camera mounted on the outside of the plane, scanning the surrounding skies for any signs of life. As well as the pilot, the plane also has a gunner, who's equipped with night vision goggles and tasked with manning and firing the minigun at any drones in the area. The exact role of the fourth and final crew member has not been detailed, but they may be tasked with various duties such as clearing any jams in the minigun, reloading it, or supporting the other crew members in other ways. Either way, perhaps the most impressive thing about the crew is that these aren't lifelong members of the military with years of combat experience behind them, but civilian volunteers who have chosen to take to the skies and lay their lives on the line to defend their homeland. And every takeoff could be their last, because the An-28 wasn't made with warfare in mind, and especially not 21st century warfare, with its hypersonic missiles and kamikaze UAVs that are able to eliminate little planes like this one in the blink of an eye. It would only take a single Russian cruise missile or drone hit in the right area to send this aircraft spiraling down. And Russia is upping the ante all the time. In the early months of 2026, for example, reports emerged of the Kremlin's troops equipping their drones with new armament, including man-portable air defense systems, man-pads, and R-60 air-to-air missiles, making them even deadlier than before. The latest waves of drones are also being fitted with self-protection systems, increasing their survivability in the air. But Russia isn't the only one making improvements. Ukraine too is enhancing its equipment. The addition of a minigun was just the start. Now, the An-28 has been transformed into an Interceptor drone platform. This was revealed in a video shared in April 2026 by the Ukrainian pilot and volunteer Timur Fatkulin, who has a history of showing off some of Ukraine's most extraordinary aviation innovations. The video reveals that an An-28 has been fitted with a set of underwing hardpoints, onto which two different types of interceptor drones have been mounted, the Skyfall P-1 Sun and the Merops AS-3 Surveyor. The P-1 Sun is one of the most commonly used and effective interceptor drones in the Ukrainian arsenal. Shaped almost like a bullet, with a modular 3D printed airframe, it can reach peak cruise speeds of around 300 km per hour, 185 miles per hour, but is capable of traveling significantly faster, if needed, with a maximum speed of around 450 km per hour or 280 miles per hour. That's more than swift enough for this interceptor to catch up with and eliminate almost any UAV Russia can deploy. On top of this, the P-1 Sun is extraordinarily cheap to make. Each unit costs around $1,000, and they're being used to take out Russian drones worth $20,000, $30,000, or even $50,000 each time. Skyfall says it can produce up to 50,000 of these interceptors every month, which would be a huge boon to Ukraine's defensive capabilities moving forward, especially with innovative new platforms to launch them from, like the An-28 itself. The other drone seen on the plane was the Merops AS-3 Surveyor. Like the P-1 Sun, the AS-3 is another small and reasonably inexpensive drone designed to seek and destroy other UAVs in the air, taking them out before they have the chance to get close to their targets. However, while the P-1 Sun is one of the most compact and cost-effective options aimed at eliminating some of the smaller and cheaper Russian drones, the AS-3 was made with slightly tougher targets in mind. It was created by the California-based company Perennial Autonomy, formerly known as Project Eagle, and boasts an operational range of up to 12.5 miles or 20 kilometers and the ability to reach maximum speeds of around 175 miles per hour or 280 kilometers per hour. It can be piloted manually or left to operate autonomously, with an AI brain guiding its every move and onboard sensors assisting with target identification and tracking. Each unit carries a 2 kg, 4.4 pound explosive warhead and can take out its targets either by colliding with them directly or detonating its warhead while in close proximity. Ukraine has been using Merops systems since 2024, and some of these drones have also been dispatched to the US NATO allies like Poland and Romania as part of Operation Eastern Sentry to beef up defenses along the alliance's eastern flank. According to the US Army, each AS-3 cost around $15,000, though this could be reduced to as low as $3,000 if production is scaled up and optimized. That would make it even easier and cheaper for Ukraine to load up its A-28s, take to the skies, and pick off Russian drones one by one, without burning through colossal amounts of cash in the process. But before we look at how exactly the An-28 deploys its interceptors and the unique advantages this brings, there's more where this came from. So if you're getting value from the military show, don't forget to subscribe. Now, the April 2026 footage of the An-28 shows the interceptors in action. We see the plane's crew spot and confirm a hostile drone in the area before launching one of their P-1 Suns. The interceptor speeds instantly towards its target, detonating in close proximity to blow it out of the air, all in a matter of seconds. Fatkulin, the pilot who uploaded the footage, confirms in the caption that aircraft-launched P-1 Sun interceptors have already proven effective in real combat conditions. He adds, "We've also tested several other interceptor drones during training flights. You could call it a cheap air-to-air missile." Fatkulin also notes that as of April, the An-28 has brought down 222 Russian drones using its minigun, and now has the potential to take out hundreds more thanks to this all-important modification. Because being able to launch drones from an aircraft is hugely advantageous for Ukraine in more ways than one. Firstly, the An-28 is able to bring the interceptors much closer to their target than they'd usually be. Typically, these types of drones would have to be launched from the ground, having to first spend time soaring several thousand feet into the sky to even get on the same level as their targets. And when you're trying to intercept relatively small UAVs moving at hundreds of kilometers per hour, time is of the essence. Every second counts. So the more time you can save, the more efficient your interceptors will be. That's why aerial launches matter. Using the data provided to them by ground-based air traffic controller teams, the An-28 crew can fly out to areas where Russian drones have been seen and launch interceptors from the closest possible distances. Once they're released from the An-28's hard points, these drones may only need to spend a matter of seconds in the air before colliding with enemy UAVs. The second big benefit is loiter time. Interceptor drones are often fast, cheap, and effective at dealing damage to anything in their path, but they're not great when it comes to endurance. Many can only stay in the air for a matter of minutes, traveling short distances before running out of power. That means it's not feasible for Ukraine to simply launch its interceptors and let them loiter in the air, hovering in place for minutes or hours on end, waiting and watching for any enemy UAVs to enter the area, and only then moving in for the kill when the time is right. They can only launch them when they're sure that the enemy is operating in the area, and as soon as each drone takes off, a countdown clock ticks quickly down, giving the interceptor only a short amount of time to find, lock on, and catch up with its target. The An-28 is a completely different prospect. This isn't a cheap drone, but a serious utility aircraft with large enough fuel tanks to carry out relatively lengthy flights. It can stay in the air for hours at a time, allowing it to carry out standing anti-drone patrols in strategic locations. Ukraine can dispatch an An-28 over important infrastructure, for example, where it can spend an extended amount of time scanning its surroundings, ready to burst into action at the first sign of danger, providing a steadfast deterrent against Russian aggression. Another benefit of a system like this is the sheer variety of weapons it can be equipped with. Even though the An-28 was never designed for combat to begin with, Ukraine has made the necessary changes to turn it into an airborne drone interceptor platform, with multiple hardpoints that could be used for carrying various types of drones, guns, and possibly even rockets, which would allow Kyiv's forces to more effectively counteract a wider range of enemy threats. In other words, even if Russia reduces its reliance on Shaheeds and switches to drones of different sizes, speeds, or operational patterns, Ukraine should in theory be able to continuously cancel them out. The An-28 also has a distinct advantage over other aircraft that makes it tailor-made for this type of mission: its short takeoff and landing stall capability. This basically means it can work on very short runways, unprepared landing strips, or other small spaces, needing far less distance to take off and land than other kinds of conventional aircraft. That matters, because when Ukraine is dealing with Russian drone threats far and wide across its entire territory, it doesn't always have the luxury of being able to use vast airports and airfields with lengthy runways. Instead, it regularly has to make the most of simple and short takeoff spaces and makeshift landing strips, and it needs planes that are able to work with those kinds of constraints. Thankfully, the A-28 can, and it's set to become an even more valuable asset for Ukraine in the months to come, as Russia's production plants are starting to churn out drones in greater and greater quantities. They've already reached rates of around 5,000 Shahed or Gerund drones each month, with plans to almost triple that number. Ukraine cannot rely on conventional measures to counteract drones in such quantities. There's no logic in firing million-dollar air defense missiles to wipe out drones that cost $50,000 or less to make and can be mass-produced with such ease. Instead, Kyiv's defenders have had to figure out alternative methods to combat the UAV threat. It's thanks to that they've been able to develop one of the most powerful, integrated and layered air defense networks on Earth, made up of not just the usual radars and air defense missile batteries, but a wide variety of cheaper, more efficient options, like mobile ground units, AI-powered turrets, direct energy weapons, and of course, interceptor drones too. Indeed, the importance of interceptors is growing by the day as they prove to be perhaps the single most cost-effective choice for nullifying Moscow's drones. They may not have the massive warheads or precision guidance systems of world-class surface-to-air missiles, but they don't need to. Ultimately, their one and only purpose is to take out other UAVs, and they've done a remarkable job of that so far. What's more, they're not just significantly cheaper than conventional air defenses, but easier to make and deploy in large numbers, which allows them to cover broader areas. This in turn enables Ukraine to keep its more expensive, high-end missiles in reserve and only use them when the need arises, to strike back at enemy missiles or aircraft, for example. Given all this, it's hardly surprising that Kyiv is putting a lot of focus on expanding and diversifying its interceptor drone fleet, deploying an increasingly varied range of models, each with its own technical specifications and capabilities, from the bullet-like P1 Sun and Strela to the quad-rotor-style Zerov 8, which uses advanced AI to hunt and destroy Shaheds without the need for any manual piloting whatsoever. Through innovations like the An-28, Ukraine is also mixing up the ways in which it uses these drones, no longer deploying them exclusively from ground locations, but also in mid-air, and it's easy to imagine how the country's military could take this concept further. It's already using mothership-style drones, which are larger drones that can carry and deploy smaller ones in contested airspace, and could theoretically modify other aircraft, such as transport helicopters and Yakolev Yak-52 trainer aircraft, to also carry and launch the likes of P1 Suns and Merops AS-3s in the future. Light aircraft and helicopters are already reported to be responsible for taking out up to 12% of all Russian drones. If they were upgraded with their own mini-interceptor swarms, that figure would inevitably start to rise. It remains to be seen how far Ukraine pushes this idea, but the An-28 is clear proof that it works. What once appeared to be an old, mundane and utterly inoffensive aircraft has been transformed into a drone-launching platform of destruction, another powerful node in the increasingly complex air defense network guarding Ukraine's skies, civilians and infrastructure, another sign of the country's extraordinary ability to see what others can't, to do what others wouldn't even think of, and to innovate in the most surprising yet impactful ways, gaining those small but vital advantages over its opponent. Now, you can see another example of Ukraine's military innovations in this video, which looks at the so-called Kremlin killer missile, that's striking fear into the heart of the Russian President Vladimir Putin himself. Or to see how Kyiv's tactics are proving too much for Russia to cope with, check out this video, which explores Ukraine's secret strategy to eliminate its enemy's missile stocks and launch platforms, leaving Moscow utterly defenseless for what comes next. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the Military Show today for more insights, analysis, and military news reports you won't want to miss.